Okay, verse 21. For even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their reasonings, and their senseless hearts were darkened. Now this is where it's going to pay to read your Bible carefully. You will notice in English the shift in tense. We've been in present tense the last few verses talking about these unrighteous people who suppress the truth of God's revelation. But now we have shifted to past tense. And I think this shift is previewed at the beginning of verse 20 for since the creation of the world. So I think Paul has in mind history here, Old Testament history to be specific. I think he intends to communicate here that the unrighteous suppression of God's revelation is something that is rooted in flawed, selfish reasoning by the darkened mind. The word translated honor here in Greek means to glorify. So they did not glorify God. Rather, they became futile in their thinking, or vain, foolish, perverted even in their thinking. And we see this play out very clearly in the early chapters of Genesis, immediately following Adam aligning himself with the serpent over against God, and that serpent language will come back in just a few verses. In refusing to glorify God, the man and the woman begin to think very wrongly, and thus begins the crisis of fallen humanity. So I think Paul has in mind the Old Testament here, especially Genesis, the earliest chapters of Genesis. He's not talking into some vacuum or in nebulous hypothetical terms about the plight of man. He's grounding himself in Old Testament revelation, which sets a precedent for how highly he regards the Old Testament, which will come into play as we continue to read the book. We'll continue our study with the next verse.